What can I say about Fast and the Furious that hasn't already been said? The colossal giant of a franchise has 11 movies, one spin-off, and is beloved by millions who are either car guys who like it because cars go fast, and the others are people who love how absolutely insane the franchise really is. What started as Point Break Street Racing Edition has evolved into something that resembles if Mission Impossible was written by frat bros. Ludacris's character Tej goes from a smart mechanic street racer dude and is now a world-renowned super hacker who also drove a car into space. Again, these are all points that many have touched on, but for me, I'm just in awe that these are some of the biggest films of all time. It's not some little franchise, it is one of the biggest franchises in film history, and it's openly and proudly dumb. It doesn't need to cater to critics because you'd be a fool to even try to find meaning in these movies. They don't need to. They could have The Rock time travel to fight dinosaurs, and it would be shot on a $300 million budget and make billions in the box office. I will always respect Fast and the Furious for basically just doing whatever they want and kind of constantly raising the bar in every movie, but Fast and the Furious gave us such great moments such as
Drop it, hell. I want to hear about this, homie.
I said forget about it, cuz.
Thing about street fights, the street always wins.
Daddy's gotta go to work.
and for that, I will be forever grateful. So why am I talking about Fast and the Furious? It's because today we will be celebrating the life and most importantly, the death of Fast and the Furious Supercharged. And before you Orlando people get too excited, it is only closing at Hollywood. You guys are stuck with your abomination until they retheme it to the train from Wicked or something. But without further ado, let's take a look at both attractions and discuss what made them so bad, and also speculate on what might be replacing it in Hollywood after they give it the old Yeller treatment. The tunnel attraction on the studio tour was one of the older stops on the tour, and no matter what theme it was, ice, fire, and mummy, it was a fun stop on the tour that people seemed to enjoy. It was around for decades, it wasn't anything special. In fact, it was basically just a giant version of a funhouse spinning tunnel, but the theming was enough to make it interesting. If you want to know more about the spinning tunnel, we discussed its history in entirety in my studio tour history video, but long story short, they closed the attraction in 2013, and I'm not sure whether if it was Universal's idea from the beginning to make this a Fast and the Furious themed attraction, because there's just no way in hell it took over 2 years for them to make it, but I could be totally wrong. They filmed the live action and green screen portions of the stop in mid-2014 on a soundstage somewhere in Playa Vista, and the whole cast was reunited to reprise their characters from the film. Apparently they took footage of LA for the background section and maybe for inspiration, because the final product looks mostly like CGI to me. I don't think there was much of a farewell for the spinny tunnel, and I remember once Supercharged was announced in 2015, there was some buzz that this would be a great new addition to the tour, but once we got closer and closer to its opening, it became clear that the stop would just be another 360 3D screen ride. Universal does this thing where they'll advertise tour stops as new rides, which especially for Supercharged is just entirely misleading. Imagine thinking they built a full-on Fast and the Furious ride and you see a billboard of Vin Diesel hanging off a helicopter and you think, well, now I gotta go check this out, but only to be really disappointed when you realize stop on the studio tour, and then you realize it's just Vin Diesel and the gang flying through PS2 Los Angeles as you get shaken and blasted in the face with a fog machine. I feel like that's Universal kind of setting themselves up for failure in some ways. Not much is really innovated from the Kong attraction besides the fact that the screen fully extends to the front of the tram, giving you a true 360 view. The only way you can really see this is if you sit in the first car of the tram. But long story short, Supercharged opened on June 25th, 2015 with a large opening ceremony where they did live stunts with cars, and of course the entire cast was there, including our favorite grumpy egg, Vin Diesel. Again, the hype around it seemed justified until we actually got on it. Regardless, I think fans were just happy to see something new on the studio tour. The stop serves as the grand finale of the studio tour. As the tram is exiting Colonial Street next to the house from the 1940s film House of Seven Gables, we see Dominic Toretto's Dodge Charger, which surprises the studio tour guide because apparently he's an authority on which cars are parked there. He says that he should call security just in case. The head of security says that they're having an issue, and the guard says he's going to patch in Special Agent Novak of the FBI. Agent Novak explains to us that the Charger belongs to a criminal named Dominic Toretto, and we should stay clear and keep an eye out for his whereabouts. The tram continues on the tour as if nothing happened, when Agent Novak patches in again to tell us it's more serious than he previously thought, and then he is interrupted by Mr. Piss Bottle himself, The Rock. The Scorpion King tells Novak that he that he will be the one in charge now, and as Mr. Novak gets mad at him, the Tooth Fairy calls him a stink pickle, which is probably the best part of this attraction in my opinion. I think he also calls him Cookie Puss as well at some point, and I just don't know, is that a part of Hobbs' character, like weird nicknames? I don't know, Fast and the Furious fans let me know. But after their little scuffle, Black Adam takes control of the call and tells us he's gonna help us lay low because Owen Shaw is on the loose and is seeking revenge. He tells us we gotta stay in this nearby warehouse, and then the tram kinda continues on. I wish somehow they incorporated the story with the studio tour a little bit better because it's confusing. At one point we're supposed to believe that there's this crazy danger out there that's interrupting our tour, but we're also told to hide in this random warehouse on the Universal backlot where world-renowned criminal Dominic Toretto and gang regularly hang out. The warehouse is a part that I just don't get. It's not like a prop warehouse or a soundstage. It's a real-world industrial warehouse plopped in the middle of the backlot. I think I'm getting way too deep into this, but long, dumb point short, I wish it was just more naturally integrated with the tour, or it was just completely ignored the fact that we are on the studio tour. I don't know, just make us a part of the movie at that point. Once we entered the warehouse, we saw a bunch of various car parts and a World War II kind of fighter pilot style painted semi-truck. The actual motor from the spinny tunnel is also featured as an Easter egg in the workshop. And on the trans screen, we're greeted by Luddy and Roman, and they apologize for being a bit messy because of the party they're throwing. And Roman says it's always more the merrier as he tries to flirt with a random guest in the third car. We learn that the semi-truck is made by Tej, aka Ludacris, and they tell us to silence our phones so that we don't blow our cover, which Roman of course doesn't do. Then they usher us into a bay where we see numerous clones of partiers in multiple rooms corresponding to the amount of cars that are on the studio tour. After this, we see Agent Novak shut down the party as Roman tries to stop him. Agent Novak almost draws his gun on him, but luckily Mr. Clean and Luddy rise from a lift as they stand on the same truck from earlier. Vin says no one's gonna mess with his family, and Novak says he has a gun, and Hobbs says, well, mine's a whole lot bigger, and that's when he kind of does this little walkout, little sassy badass walkout. And this is when Hobbs calls him Cookie Puss.
Let's go, Cookie Puss!
Vin tells us that he's not going to let anything happen to us because we're under his protection now, and this is when we hear tires squeal outside. Vin says they need to get out there and tells our driver to move that vehicle. This is when we enter the screen room where on screen we see a recreation of the Jurassic parking lot. The peace and quiet is interrupted when Owen Shaw pulls up with a flamethrower and begins lighting the ceiling on fire. But before he can hit us, Dom hits him with the charger and says,
This is our turn.
furthering my own lore that the family lives on the Universal backlot somehow. I think they ever touch on this again, but the fact that he does say this is his turf, I think it means they live there. That's their house. They're going to defend the Simpsons Red if their life depends on it. We crash through a wall, which actually looks kind of cool with the fully 360 screen. I think this is like the best use of that, is like breaking through stuff, which they should have done more of. And we crashed into the streets of LA, and Luddy and Roman and Dom catch up to us on those two semi-trucks, and Dom's following by in his little Charger. I think it's a Challenger. No, it's a Charger. Dom is then rammed by Shaw, who is firing a machine gun, and to our left we see Roman flip one of the grunt cars. I'm really not sure how he does this. I've tried watching videos to see, but I just can't figure it out. Maybe in the edit I will figure it out, and I'll be showing you right now. During this, Luddy climbs onto a truck with an excavator of some kind. He grabs car that Shaw is in, and Luddy says, how about you eat asphalt? And Shaw utters his last words, which are, don't think you're getting away. Then Luddy slams his car into a concrete wall, which is brutal as hell, and pretty much, they just kill our villain in the first 20 seconds of the ride. And Dom says, nice work, Luddy, which is, problem solved pretty much. Luddy then climbs into Dom's car by jumping on the front, and we see the drones begin to attack us, and Dom then opens his car door, grabs onto one of them, and now he's riding around like it's a Fortnite glider. I've heard many people make fun of the fact that they look like helicopters, and people joke about how big Vin Diesel is compared to them, but to be fair, in canon, they're supposed to be drones. Is it still dumb that Vin Diesel's flying around like a little princess through the air? Yes, a little bit. Also, I'm just wondering, what was his plan from the beginning? Like, is he just gonna go on a joyride? Like, he's just gonna ride one of them? Like, is that his whole point? Because what is he gonna punch a drone midair while riding on the other drone? I'm just very confused. Robin ends up taking them down though by shooting them with a gun, which seems to be way more effective than Dom just going, I'm gonna go ride one of these for fun, and somehow makes it back into his car, and this whole thing is just so silly and goofy to me. He just floats for no reason. The drones then crash into a gas plant that we are driving into conveniently, and the finale consists of us escaping an explosion via super sick, dope, epic, radical ramp. So we just do a little jump, and then that's when Dom goes, ride or die. And then we crash into like a bunch of cargo boxes or cargo container shipping containers, and then finally the nightmare is over and we get one last clip on the tram screen of the gang telling us that we can ride with them anytime, and they play some super epic ass sick ass music at the end. Then you pull out of the warehouse and that's pretty much the end of the tour. What a weird and anticlimactic way to end the tour. At this point, when you first see the warehouse, it's exciting, but once you get there and you realize it's just nothing but a screen and some fog machines, it's pretty disappointing. Long story short, I don't think anyone really liked this, and even when it first opened, it was mostly seen as something that you have to put up with on the studio tour. I've avoided the tour for a while because I'm tired of sitting through the same corny jokes over and over again. The news breaking of them finally putting the nail in the coffin for this ride was huge in my household. I was genuinely celebrating this like my favorite team won the championship, and if Supercharged has no haters, I'm dead. Rest in piss. I only hope Universal sees this as an opportunity to add more physical, practical, special effect themed base stops on the tour. Something similar to Earthquake, maybe themed around Twisters. That would be pretty incredible. Honestly, anything, because we haven't gotten a proper stop in a really long time. And when it comes to Universal Orlando, after the lukewarm reception of the studio tour stop, they thought it'd be a fantastic idea to make a full-blown attraction based around the stop, and they would remove Earthquake and Disaster, and the Beetlejuice show, which kind of had a cult following at the park. Both of these classic attractions closing would be a huge blow to the theme park community. People only hope that Universal would plus the studio tour stop in some way and make an attraction that would actually be worth the closures, but as you all know, this wouldn't be true, and other than a new queue and some cool cars and a weird pre-show that involves a live cast member, there really isn't much of a difference. The ride vehicle is a weird party bus with RGB lights. It kind of has like a Fortnite battle bus kind of vibe, or maybe like a party bus for a high school prom. This is probably the worst out of the two versions because people come to Universal Orlando, and if they're clueless, they'll see a Fast and the Furious ride and they'll gladly wait for it just to get off and be incredibly disappointed. Even with the line and the actors in the pre-show, they kind of always make jabs about the ride and seem to be having fun with how ridiculous it really is. I'm not trying to be a hater, but I feel like it's unanimous at this point that the ride is lacking substance. I don't know what's worse, the fact that it infected the studio tour and you can't go on it without having to see this part, or the fact that they closed beloved attractions for Universal Orlando. I think Orlando has a slight leg up because they aren't forced into it, they can just ignore it, but at the same time it takes up value space in the park that could be used for probably anything else. Again, I'm throwing Twisters out there. I haven't seen the movie, only the original, but it made enough money to be considered a success and people seem to really like it. If only they didn't pull the plug on the original Twister attraction, because they could have easily just rethemed it to the new movie. Long story short, give me Tornado. In the end, I don't think anyone is sad over the death of Supercharged, but if you are, please leave a comment and tell me why. I hope this starts the countdown of the closure for the Orlando version so that we can finally be free. But in Hollywood, we'll have a great coaster themed around the franchise, so if you love Fast and the Furious, you'll have something that'll actually be fast, unlike the boring dumpster fire that was Supercharged. Anyway, I'm excited to see what this means for the studio tour. Make sure you guys comment below where you would like to see as a stop on the tour. And again, if you want more content like this, make sure you leave a like and of course subscribe. I love the discussions in the comments. I pretty much read all of them, so feel free to drop one below and let me know how you feel about all of this. Anyway, have a great week. I'll see you soon.